Alright, and this is the first step in me making my PVC TDC mod. As you can see, I took one piece of 1-inch inner diameter PVC pipe and measured off about 2 inches from one end of it, then wrapped it in duct tape all the way around, that way I could know a focus point. Now I'm going to cut this line right here, so I have this 2-inch segment of tubing, and I'll get back to you all then. Alright, and as you can see, I cut my 2-inch segment of PVC pipe. Now, honestly, what I use next to measure this for my top dead center mod, if you don't have any, it's fairly cheap to pick up. I used some electrical tape. Now, I don't exactly know the dimensions of this. This was just something that I could lay across the tube. And I actually just wrapped a piece of that from here to the bottom and used the width of this to tell me where to cut my PVC pipe. So I'll do that and get back with you all again. See you there. One note before you start cutting down into your PVC, as you can see, this line isn't going to cut straight down, so you don't want to cut it at an angle like this going in, because then it's not going to sit on your rifle properly. You want to go from this spot down to the bottom to make a perfectly horizontal line, almost making a wall for your PVC TDC pod. So I'm going to cut mine that way, give you a little image of what it would look like when you're cutting it correctly, and then show you all where to go from there. See you there. Now I guess I should clarify, I'm using the Dremel 4000 with a cutting wheel to be able to cut into this PVC like I have. Although you can also use a hacksaw, it's just a bit more work. And it's a lot more hard to be precise with a hacksaw. So if you have someone that has a Dremel or you have a Dremel yourself, I'd recommend using one of those, but if you don't, the hacksaw is always an option. Now the result of cutting with the size of the electrical tape, you should get a piece about like this. Now what you're going to do with this piece is drill a hole exactly in the center of this, so at the 1-inch point. I'll measure this across, find out how far that is, and then put a mark in the dead center. That way I can drill a hole straight down into this. When this sits on top of your rifle, it'll sit flush with the barrel, and you'll have 2 mounting screws at the front and back of this. That way it can mount onto the rifle, stay mounted, and the screw itself can go through a hole that's threaded in the center of this. Now, I will explain something later that I did with this PVC TDC mod. I actually took the safety out of my gun because I found when I racked the bolt sometimes the safety would get stuck and that could really mess me up in the middle of a match. So I took the spring from the safety that I took off and actually put that up under the screw and made a little spot for it in here. That way it would keep tension on the screw and I wouldn't lose the hop-up adjustment that I had made prior to the match. I'll come back to that later, but I figured it was something nice to mention now. Now I'll show you how to measure your piece. Alright, now to find the center of your PVC pipe that you've cut, you can actually measure out 2 inches of this electrical tape and then cut a line in the middle, right at that 1-inch point. Cut it in half at that, and then lay it back onto your PVC segment to find the halfway point. I'll show you all that then. See you there. Alright, now that electrical piece is cut and put back onto the PVC pipe, you can see that it comes out to, it's around 1 3/4 of an inch. So you would actually be able to take the middle of those two, which it's going to be hard for me to show. Basically take 3/4, 0.75, and multiply that by 0.5, and you're going to get your in-between point, and that's where you're going to put your mark on your PVC pod. I'll go ahead and drill mine, and then I'll show you where to go from there. Alright, now that I have my hole drilled in the dead center, I'm going to use this drill with the 8x32 threading bit to give this 8x32 threads for my knurled head screw, which is the screw that's going to be pressing down on your hop-up arm on your VSR-10. I'm going to go ahead and thread this, and then I'll show you that an 8x32 screw fits it. Alright, now this is the 8x32 screw that I used in my VSR-10, and as you can see, it does thread perfectly, but it is a little loose inside the PVC. Now to give that some tension, over here, this is the spring that you can retrieve from the safety in your VSR-10. Now I'm sure you can use a pen spring or something along those lines if you don't want to remove the safety, but I found mine to be more of a hazard than the safety measure, so I took mine out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a groove inside this PVC that this spring will sit inside of. That way I can actually use it up under that screw without risk of it going anywhere. I'll show you all how to do that in just a moment. Alright, so since I can generally see where the spring is going to sit, I can actually cut a groove inside my PVC pipe. That way the spring will sit perfectly inside of it without moving from side to side, since the width of it isn't quite matching the 8x32 screw that I have. So I'm more than likely going to use the Dremel tool, as well as some of these bits, probably a grinding bit, something along this, to go around that circle in small patterns. You don't need to go very deep, just a groove for that to sit inside of. That way it doesn't go anywhere. So I'm going to cut that groove and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, now this is the groove that I cut. Now it isn't exactly perfect. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be something that this spring can sit inside of without going anywhere. As you can see, it fits the spring perfectly. So I'm going to slide that a little to the side, and I will go over here and grab my screw that's sitting on the chair. Try and do this on camera, that way you can see what it does. Alright. And now I should be able to screw this in. I'll try and do this. And as you can see, now the spring is giving it a lot more tension. So what that's going to do is keep the screw from coming undone in the middle of a match. And this will actually give tension on the screw, that way your hop-up doesn't change during the middle of a match. I did this with mine. You don't have to do this. The tension from the hop-up arm alone held mine in place before, but I took this as a precautionary measure. So you don't have to do this, but I found A, it looks good, and B, it helped me, well, more or less just for ease of mind. I didn't want my hop-up changing in the middle of a match. I'm going to start doing a lot more gameplays in the future, so I need my hop-up to be precise. You can do the TDC mod the way I showed you before. This is more or less an updated version that I call the PVC TDC mod. A little bit wordy, but it works. Now, next I'm going to drill 2 holes in the front and back of this in the middle. That way whenever it goes onto the barrel, it sits and screws into that. That way this mod won't go anywhere. I'll show you where to mark those holes in a moment, and see you there. Alright, now where I actually measured to drill my holes, I went to 3/16 of an inch, which is, I'll try and show you as best I can, this line right here going, oh, it's terrible. Okay. This line that the paper is writing on right now. That was 3/16 of an inch. So I went up that, and those are the spots on both sides where I'm going to drill the holes to mount the TDC mod. So I'm going to go ahead and drill and thread those to 8x32, and then we'll resume from there. Alright, as you can see, I set the threads in on that piece of PVC pipe, so this is getting very close to done. Now, what I've done, the segment of PVC that I actually cut this piece out of, I'm going to use this as a simulated barrel. Now, let's say you've done my original TDC mod. You've got this hole drilled, it's a little stripped out. This would have been your 10x32 thread. Now that you have that hole, you can actually take this, and you'll see that this juts out a little bit, and you're able to set it on top of where your original mod was placed. Now, once you've got it in the center as close as you can, you're going to mark these spots on both sides. You can either use pen, Sharpie, etc. I'm going to use Sharpie, and I'm going to mark those spots, and I'll show you where they are in just a moment. Alright, and as you can see now I have reference points on both sides that match up perfectly with these. Now I'm going to drill and thread those with 8x32, that way they match the threads in my PVC TDC mod. And then I will attach the 2 pieces with these. Now these are the exact pieces that I used for this mod. The knurled head screw, it's 8x32, 3/8 inch. And then I used the farthest on the left, so those are 1/4. I believe 1/4 inch. So that'll be these here to mount the actual PVC to the barrel, or my simulated barrel of the VSR-10. So I'll show you how that works in just a moment. Alright, now I've drilled and threaded the holes into the simulated barrel, and I'm going to attach those 1/4 8x32 screws into this to attach my TDC mod. Alright, and as you can see, now these screws are mounted and the PVC TDC mod is together. Now, what you can see in action, The farther you adjust down that screw, I should see it start poking through the top here in just one moment. Well, actually, I forget, the PVC mod's a lot thicker than the actual VSR-10 barrel, so you won't see it here. But this screw, the farther it goes in, would actually be pushing in on your hop-up arm inside of your gun. And then while it's doing that, it's adjusting your hop-up all the while. So the farther you take this screw out, the less your hop-ups can be. The farther you put this screw in, the more. Now mine is very close to flush. If you wanted it to be perfectly flush with your VSR-10 barrel, all you would need to do is sand the inside of this a little bit and the edges here. Otherwise, I think this would mount to the VSR-10 barrel perfectly. At least it did on mine. Now the last thing you can do, this is entirely optional, but I did it. I rounded off both of these corners and rounded the edges of this mod and then painted it. You can see the screw still has its paint. I'm not actually going to paint this one, but I will show you what it looks like after you sand down the edges. Now this was just a hasty rounding down. You could actually get it to look a lot more refined than this. I have mounted the mod back onto my rifle, and this is what it would look like minus the paint when it's finished. Now, the only other thing that I can say is with this TDC mod, I have tested... I shoot .36 gram Jeff's BBs out of mine, but I have shot .4s out of my sniper rifle before. So, this mod, one, I can show you that I did sand down the edges and you're able to get it very flush with the barrel. So this wouldn't look bad on your rifle at all. I can show you a picture of what it looks like on mine at the end. But overall, this has been the PVC TDC mod and how I performed it. I used the spring from the safety, 8x32 hex screws, and knurled head screw. I've given you the dimensions. Now all that's left is for you to perform this yourself. Now, I did mine because it was of necessity. If you wanted to just perform a little bit easier TDC mod, and then if this becomes a necessity later, I have it on my channel for you to use. Now, overall, this has been the PVC TDC mod. I appreciate you all for checking it out. Leave a like, a comment if you have anything you'd like to say about it. And if you'd like to see some gameplay of it, I should have that up soon. I bought a new camera for my sniper rifle that should be here before too long, so I can start recording at a lot higher quality. Overall, thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.